and welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. I'm Blondie.
And I'm T.
And welcome to another episode
Of
Amazingness.
You usually say of Grimwit with Dimwits, but you already said that.
I did. Of our insanity recorded. How's that?
Okay, we'll go with that.
So did you see the news about that lady in Michigan that was found living in a supermarket sign?
Okay, first of all, you know I don't watch the news. So your news is news to me.
Okay, well, I don't know if I saw this on news or just some odd news story because regular news depresses me.
So wait a minute. You're talking about a lady living in a supermarket sign?
In Michigan. She's a 34-year-old woman, and she was found living like in an attic space, but where their sign for family fair, the market name is. And when they found her, now, first of all, this space is 5 feet by 8 feet, which sounds pretty decent size.
Like a jail cell.
Whatever works. So when they found her, she was coming out of the sign. She was in an all black outfit and she had ski goggles on her head.
Okay.
So the police saw her and gave her the nickname of Roof Ninja. And the police officer joked with the lady and said, "Tell me that ain't cool."
And they thought it was cool that she was living. Okay, so when you say in the sign, you mean like where the letters are?
It's like the roof was like at a peak and she was living, it went across the sign was at a peak and it was across the roof. So she was living in that space that the sign was actually set in.
Oh my God.
I wonder if it was rent controlled.
Right. It was peak property.
Oh. She asked the police officer how they got on the roof. And one of them said, "A ladder. We're not roof ninjas." So this woman lived in the space for over a year. And she had a coffee maker, a computer, bedding, a phone, and even a printer. And she had laid flooring down. So she had a whole situation happening.
How did she get electricity up there?
Maybe she tapped in. Maybe for the sign. Maybe there's electricity in there somewhere.
That is wild. And what I didn't hear was a shower, a toilet.
I have no idea. I'm not going to speculate.
Yeah. She's more than a roof ninja. That's crazy.
Maybe she holds it all day and goes somewhere in the morning. I don't know.
She's a diapered roof ninja.
Okay, so she was able to get electricity through a power cord plugged into an outlet on the roof.
I don't know if I think I admire her. She found a way.
Yes, she did. A way to not pay a lot of rent.
So what happened when they found her?
I guess she talked to the owners. So no charges were pursued. And she was provided with information about local services in the area. She apologized, I guess, to the owner and just went on her way. Where she went from there, no one knows.
Wow. Over a year.
I guess you can just live anywhere.
Just find a spot that you fit in, plug in, and you're good to go.
Okay, I wouldn't fit up there, so I'm good.
If it was 5 by 8, and that is, I think, close to the size of a jail cell or prison cell, you could have had a bunkmate in there. She could have sublet.
I think a standard room, isn't it 10 by 10?
I don't know.
Yeah, I want to say it's 10 by 10.
That is wild.
And apparently she did her business up there with her printer and her Keurig.
What do you mean? She had a business?
I was just speaking in general.
Oh, I thought you meant she was running a business. Like, what? That's a new level.
I wonder what her address would have been.
She's a real estate.
A real estate agent.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
It was interesting.
Oh, wow. A very interesting story.
I thought so. So I thought I'd share.
Thanks for sharing. That was pretty good.
You're welcome. So what do we have today?
Well, we haven't done a really good urban legend in quite some time. I actually had to look through our episodes, and we have quite a few by now, by the way. Yay us.
Yay us. Where's the fanfare?
After looking through everything, I think the only one that came close to an urban legend story was episode 15. vampires, legit crypt fanksters. I like that name. I thought I was pretty creative
You
with
were
that
very
one.
clever with that one.
But that episode definitely provided a lot of food for thought, pun intended. Whether vampires, legitimately existed then and maybe even perhaps now. There were some pretty eye-opening documented stories, so I'm still teetering on being a believer after digging my teeth into all that. Again, pun intended. I'm on fire today. You can't touch this.
You're bloody batty today is what you are.
Just like every day. But I figured it was time to cover another good one that will make people go,
Tap their little finger on their chin.
That's right. So let's discuss the history of a little town called Point Pleasant. Doesn't a name like that almost sound made up, like to represent an all-American white picket fence type of city?
Exactly. Where they have those holiday parades down Main Street and Miss Corncob on the mayor's car doing her parade wave.
Miss Corncob. Funny thing is they really do have names like that.
I know they do.
Who wants to be Miss Pumpkin or Miss Corncob or whatever it is, Miss Haybell? Who wants to be that person?
Haybell. Miss Snowball.
Exactly. I'd be like, no thanks. Point Pleasant is a very small town in West Virginia with less than 5,000 people, most being families who have resided there for several generations. So I think it's pretty fair to say that everybody knows just about everybody. And depending on the quality of your character, that could be a dream come true or your worst friggin' nightmare.
The funny part about that is I've always wanted to live in a small town and have that small town vibe. But like you said, you go around the corner and everybody knows your business. That might not be too great.
Yeah, you definitely can't get away with anything. And you know us, we're always trying to get away with something.
That's right. We'd be the cheesemah of the town.
That's right. All day long, people be like, So the city, Point Pleasant, is 89.5 miles from Columbus, Ohio, and is well known for its beautiful scenery along the Ohio River. The entire town is only about 3 miles long. That's pretty stinking tiny.
Yeah.
But with its charm, history, legends, and location, it still attracts many visitors to the area, bringing in a steady stream of revenue for the locals. As charming as this little town is, it's also loaded with an interesting and quite bloody history, because this is where the infamous Battle of Point Pleasant, also known as the Battle of Great Kanawha, occurred.
Okay, I haven't heard of either one of those.
I hadn't heard of them either, but it's actually a really sad story.
Aw.
Let's let the grim begin. It was fought on October 10th, 1774. The Shawnee and Mingo warriors were forces under the Shawnee Chief Cornstalk. Together, they attacked Virginia militiamen hoping to halt their advance into their territories in the Ohio Valley. After a long and furious battle, Chief Cornstalk and his warriors were overtaken by the militia.
So is Chief Cornstalk related to Miss Corncob?
Possibly.
I didn't plan that, I'll be honest. I didn't plan that.
He was forced to retreat in order to not lose more warriors in a battle that he could not win. Lots of lives were lost on both sides, and many Native American bodies remain on the land to this day, as they were hastily buried at the site where the massacre took place.
I thought Native Americans had ceremonies for the deceased, for their souls or afterlife or something like that.
I'm sure they do. I don't know enough about it to comment on it, but again, they said they were hastily buried at the site. And maybe they didn't have access to the land again. Maybe that's why they hastily buried them. I'm just guessing. Following their victory, the Virginians, along with the second force of soldiers, led by Lord Dunmore, the royal governor of Virginia, marched into the Ohio Valley and compelled Chief Cornstalk to agree to sign a treaty in order to permanently end the war. Losing the Battle of Point Pleasant forced Chief Cornstalk to make peace in the Treaty of Camp Charlotte. The Shawnee gave up their claims to all lands south of the Ohio River, which are today's states of Kentucky and West Virginia.
Wow, that's a big section.
A huge piece of property. And according to the treaty, the Shawnee were also obligated to return all white captives and stop attacking barges of white immigrants traveling on the Ohio River. Wow, how heartbreaking that the Shawnee were trying to protect their territory, and now they have to not only lose what amounts to 2 states, but they also have to agree to just watch all the new people come in on barges and ravage their lands.
That's awful. That is just terrible. Unfortunately, that is our history.
It is our history, and it makes me really sad. So, an interesting side note in this story is that there was a colonel by the name of John Field, and he was an ancestor of the United States presidents, George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. He fought and was killed in this very battle.
Wow, interesting.
I thought that was interesting too.
Back to them taking over and the Native Americans just having to watch. Do you remember that commercial with the Indian and the trash on the freeway?
Yes,
When you have the
where he
single
was
tear.
crying. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, yes.
Yes, that's what I pictured when you were talking about that.
Yep, that's such a good image for people to be able to refer to, because that, when I first saw that commercial, I seriously, tears were coming down my face.
It was so poignant.
Yeah, it really was. So that battle was in 1774. But a few years later, while there was supposed to be peace between the Native Americans and the soldiers, on November 10th, 1777, while Chief Cornstalk and his son, Alana were visiting Fort Randolph, a rebel group of Native Americans shot and killed a soldier near that fort. And I looked for it, but there was no reason that I could find for this killing of the soldier.
It seems random, but I'm sure there was a reason.
I'm sure there was too. There was a lot of tension between the two. I mean, who knows? It could have just been an opportunity, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So, a vengeful mob of soldiers quickly formed, and the enraged men stormed the visiting Chief Cornstalk's cabin. The mob took them captive and eventually shot everyone who had been staying in the cabin, killing Chief Cornstalk, his young son, and 2 other Shawnee leaders. Popular folklore alleges that sometime during his captivity at the fort, Chief Cornstalk, realizing he was about to die, spoke up and said, quote, "I came to your house as a friend, and you have murdered me, and you kill my young son, Alana end quote. According to legend, upon Chief Cornstalk's dying breath, he cursed the land that the settlers had stolen from his people for the next 200 years.
Okay, that's scary and oddly specific.
I agree. I would have went for eternity. Whether due to curse or coincidence, since Chief Cornstalk's murder, the area of Point Pleasant has been plagued with a stream of bad luck, becoming Point Not So Pleasant.
Sounds like it.
The Ohio River flooded the town and surrounding areas a total of 4 times since the curse, creating catastrophic results for the town's residents. Then rumors began to circulate about a terrifying and mysterious creature that resembled a birdman. These birdman rumors were well known, as many locals claimed to have seen the creature starting in the year 1914, which is more than 50 years before any Mothman sightings were reported. We will talk about the Mothman later on. The birdman creature was described as a large bird with the head of a man and a wingspan of at least 12 feet. Birdman was said to be much larger than any human and covered in dark reddish feathers that shimmered in the sunlight. When I read about the shimmering, it reminded me of you and your friend arguing over the Twilight vampires not being real because they shimmered in the sun.
Yes, that was a huge argument because vampires were not supposed to be in the sun. They would burst into flames if that was the case. However, the Twilight series definitely captured their shimmeringness.
They just got prettier in the sun.
That's right.
I looked up the Shawnee symbol. I was looking for cheese man. I'm just going to be honest about that. Just to see if it was related to what the creature looked like in any way. And the tribe's symbol is composed of 5 simple objects: a circle, a panther, a spear, a swan, and a collection of 4 feathers. So I wonder if you put all those things together, you'd get a birdman. I mean, I could totally see if the panther stood on his hind legs and had swan wings. Just a random thought.
Okay, when you said that, I pictured a panther body a swan head and holding a spear.
I like where you're going with it. For many years, this exact same type of creature was also sighted in northeastern Mexico and has been well documented in recent years. But the northeastern Mexican legend regarding a similar creature dates back to the beginning of mankind. So that made me curious if there was like hieroglyphic images from back in the day, because that would be really cool to see.
Very cool. Which reminds me, we need to go to Egypt still.
Yes, we do. That was a 2020 trip that we had to cancel, and that stunk.
Canceled a lot lately, and I don't like it.
Me neither. Now, some people have said that Birdman and a more recent creature that was named Mothman are one and the same. The very first documented Mothman sighting was recorded on November 1st, 1966, and documented sightings went on for 13 months while Mothman terrorized Point Pleasant and its local areas. But believe it or not, Mothman and Birdman are not the only legendary monsters that invaded that very same area. So you go, Chief Cornstalk, with your bad self and your karma curse.
You're right. He stalked them till the end. We are so corny.
You said it, not me. I was cool with my karma curse.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Other notorious monsters included Bat Boy, who is described as a large-eyed, fanged human child who is believed to have fallen into the Lost World caverns in Lewisburg, West Virginia, as a child back in the 1950s, and then miraculously escaped a little over 30 years later in 1992.
That's strange.
Very strange. So the question was asked by a reporter, quote, "How would someone just fall in a cave?" End quote. And the owner, Steve Silverberg, explains how this cave was stumbled upon in the first place. Quote, "The old farmer that owned this farm for years had a big working cattle ranch here, and he had been dumping his garbage and dead cows down that hole because it was easier than digging a hole to bury all that stuff. All he knew was that it took a long time for stuff to hit the bottom, and the hole never filled up." End quote. Okay, when I read this, I will fully admit that my jaw dropped. There are so many things wrong with how this farmer discarded his trash and cow carcasses.
So he just waited to hear things drop. Basically, his trash and his dead cows were going to the other side of the world.
Up in China?
Right.
Ew, just the thought of it is so disturbing. It's like, you don't even know where that stuff's going. You're just dropping it. Who knows?
And all I can picture is the smell, or not picture, all I can think of is the smell.
Oh, well, if it's going that far down, there's probably no smell, but it would just make me crazy not to know where things were going. That's just me.
That's where all the extra socks go. You know, the ones you lose in the dryer.
All my socks have lost their soulmate.
Ah, chuckle, chuckle.
Bump. You asked for it, okay? It wasn't planned.
I need to start checking myself before I talk.
Then in 1942, two very brave or very stupid college students were lowered down into this unholy beef basin. And when they reached the bottom, they discovered the Lost World caverns. So I had to look up these caverns and wow, breathtaking, really beautiful. The site has since been registered as a national natural landmark. But I wonder if it smells like beef jerky down there, because that would be even better.
What is wrong with you? So when they were lowering each other down, did they just wait till he heard splat?
It's like, who wants to go into that eternal hole? I'll go.
How long of a rope do we need?
Exactly.
There's just so many things logistically strange about that.
Very strange. But it wasn't until the 1970s that an actual walkway was dug out in order to have access to the caves, which would have left Bat Boy stranded there with only bats to raise him, and of course carry on the family name. There is also a second theory that he may have also been raised by a population of subterranean beings that lived underneath the caves. Just crazy.
At least they have cows to live off of. I mean,
Beef jerky. Bat Boy, being half human and half bat or subterranean life creature, is a creature of many interesting characteristics. He is said to have offered his acute bat hearing services to the U.S. government after the 9/11 attacks. He wanted to go to Afghanistan and help with the search for Osama bin Laden, who, as we all know, is a very similar cave-dwelling creature.
You hit that rusty nail on the head.
Bat Boy's good for something. Some of the articles reported that Bat Boy gets angry with people and doesn't like them trying to capture him. He even bit off a doctor's nose while he was trying to examine him. Didn't we just talk about that freak who bit off the guy's face in Vegas, wondering why he didn't go for the salty nose treat? Well, Bat Boy apparently likes his savory snack.
Yes, we did talk about that. And it was just gross, as this is. But do you remember that boxer who bit off another fighter's ear? Who was that?
Mike Tyson bit off Evander Holyfield's ear. How do you not know that? Everybody knows that.
I think I'm trying to put it in my brain to forget.
I saw it. It was amazing.
Oh, again, I say, what is wrong with you?
I saw that fight. And I mean, you just see Evander pull back and part of his ear's missing. And he's touching like, like, what the heck?
And I'm sure that's not what he was saying.
I'm sure it wasn't. But we in the audience, and I think I was at home, were just like, what just happened right now is insanity.
Oh,
ridiculous. He was just pissed because he was losing.
Talk about tantrum.
Seriously. Okay, here's why a lot of people believe in the Bat Boy and why he has significance. Steve Silberberg said, quote, "This subterranean culture that lives underneath us has pretty much left us alone. But they are getting pretty tired of what we're doing up above, between the fracking and polluting it all, getting down into the underground. Out there or not, maybe there is something to be learned from his epic tales." End quote. For just a second, I wondered why Bat Boy was still called a boy when he obviously was now a man. But then I remembered, yes, that name is already taken.
Oh my God. Why couldn't they change it to maybe Bat Dude or Bat Guy?
I like Bat Dude.
So they're blaming us for fracking? Is that what the theory is? We have nothing to do with that.
That's the word he used. So that was a quote. I couldn't change anything about it.
We have nothing to do with fracking.
You out of your fracking mind?
I'm fracking serious.
Another legend is the Flatwoods Monster. In West Virginia folklore, this monster is also known as the Braxton County Monster or the Phantom of Flatwoods. This creature is reported to have been sighted in the towns of Flatwoods and Braxton County, West Virginia, on September 12, 1952, after a blinding bright light crossed the night sky. Over 50 years later, investigators have suggested that the light was a meteor, and the creature was a barn owl perched in a tree with shadows making the owl appear to be a large humanoid, but the descriptions varied. The figure was described as approximately 10 feet tall with a round, blood-red face, and the bright red eye shapes emitted greenish-orange lights. The body was thick and said to be black or green. Many also described the figure as having small, claw-like hands, clothing-like folds on the body, and a head that resembled the ace of spades shape. The creature was known to make a hissing sound, had a pungent smell, and would glide rather than walk. So we'll post a drawing of this creature because it's pretty wild looking.
I actually had to take a look in advance. It reminded me of almost every alien I've ever seen in movies.
It looked more cartoonish to me. It didn't seem like it could be real.
It was just bizarre.
Yeah, it's super bizarre. I like the ace of spades shape.
Maybe he's hissing because he wanted to be the heart.
Maybe he's upside down. Strangely, residents and city officials for Flatwoods erected a welcome sign, which designated their town as the, quote, home of the green monster, end quote. The town also commemorates the creature with an annual Flatwoods Days festival. Didn't these people ever see Independence Day? When are we going to learn that the aliens never want to be our friends?
They don't. They just want to attack and pillage. I was thinking actually Mars Attacks.
I don't think I saw Mars Attacks.
It was strangely funny.
It looked odd to me, and I thought,
A lot of big stars in that.
interesting. I may have to see it now. But regarding winged divinities, let's go back to the most famous case in the world, Mothman. The sighting of Mothman during the collapse of the Point Pleasant Bridge, aka the Silver Bridge, that claimed the lives of 46 people, 2 of whom were never found. This tragedy took place on the afternoon of December 15th, 1967, during peak Christmas shopping time. The Silver Bridge was a chain suspension bridge built in 1928 and carried U.S. Route 35 over the Ohio River, connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Gallipolis, Ohio. This bridge was officially named the Point Pleasant Bridge, but people called it the Silver Bridge for the color of its aluminum paint. Investigation of the wreckage soon pointed to a failure in one of the suspension chains as the primary cause. However, to explain why it failed was more mysterious. Some locals felt that perhaps the eerie flying humanoid haunting the area might be connected to the bridge collapse, especially since the sightings associated with Mothman ended after the disaster. You know, that really is a bit of a coincidence that he just goes away after this.
Maybe he was on the bridge when it collapsed.
He was sighted on the bridge and near the bridge, which is why people are associating him with it.
Well, maybe he got trapped under the bridge.
I think they would have found him if that was the case.
Who knows?
The tragedy at the Silver Bridge is to date the only recorded disaster to be associated with Mothman, wherein the creature was sighted prior to the unfortunate event, although folkloric accounts exist saying that Mothman was present at many historic disasters. But according to cryptozoologist, researcher, and author Lauren Coleman, these later stories are based on events taken from fictional sources, such as the Mothman Prophecies feature film, that have made their way into the Mothman's mythology. Buzzkill. Side note, dang, I missed my calling and should have been a cryptozoologist. Good thing I'm not because I can barely say it. But they're the ones that research and study all the legends and the extinct creatures. I think that'd be the best job in the world.
I think they're making these names up. That being said, that would definitely be your jam.
Right? I would excel at that.
As long as you didn't have to say your title.
Yeah, I'd just be like, just call me Crypt.
I would think more zoo.
Following the strange tragedy of the bridge collapse, stories became all the more bizarre when witnesses came forward who had previously reported having seen a mysterious creature in the region surrounding Point Pleasant leading up to the bridge disaster. In fact, persistent sightings began in November 1966 and totaled 26 over a one-year span. The reports of a large, winged creature with glowing red eyes are centered in the Point Pleasant area, usually in or near an abandoned munitions facility known as the TNT plant. Skeptics attempted to offer reasonable explanations, some arguing that the creature was just a stray sandhill crane. That's not even close. Cranes have a pretty distinctive body shape, and they are nowhere as big. Mothman was described as standing more than 7 feet tall with a wingspan of 12 feet and large red glowing eyes. So no, it's not a crane.
So they tried to explain away 26 sightings. Talk about extreme justification.
I think they try to do that so that people won't freak out and they're able to sleep at night. I don't know.
Denial.
Denial, exactly. Which reminds me, we need to go to Egypt. But bump.
So you can get your crypto on.
I told you I'm on fire.
You're still bloody batty.
Let's go through some of the unsettling documented sightings chronologically. All right, we'll start on November 1st, 1966. A National Guardsman at the Armory claimed to see a very large, brown in color, half bird and half man figure perched in a tree. You know, I always give a little more weight to people who serve our country in any manner because they have to go through a lot of testing to make sure that they have their heads on straight. So I'm sure it wasn't easy for this poor guy to come forward with such a crazy story if he wasn't absolutely sure that's what he saw.
Because depending on what he did, he may have come across a little bit crazy.
Exactly. He would have lost his job.
Right. If it wasn't a true story, at least something he actually did see.
Right. So anyway, that's why I always feel like, I mean, I don't know the guy, but I have a tendency to believe.
They don't want to risk it.
Exactly. On November 2nd, 1966, the very next day, a man encountered a UFO landing in Point Pleasant. Sewing machine salesman Woodrow Derenberger had his eerie encounter while he was driving on Interstate 77 when a bizarre vehicle landed in the road in front of him with a loud crash. He described the vehicle as an old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney flaring at both ends, narrowing to a small neck, then enlarging to a bulge in the center.
So something the size of a kerosene lamp landed in front of him?
No, he's just using that as the shape.
Okay. I'm thinking Ant-Man.
As Derenberger stopped his truck, a hatch slid open and a tall, dark-skinned man climbed out of the strange vehicle. He described the tall creature as having, quote, elongated eyes and a wide, creepy grin, end quote. He also described him as wearing a blue metallic uniform, which was shiny and glistened, and a wide black belt. These creatures are reported to have small, beady black eyes, a dark complexion, and of course, a large, shark-like grin. They also have no ears or noses and are almost always seen at the same time as UFO sightings. There sure is a lot of glistening amongst these creatures. They must have a lot of time for primping on their hands because I sure don't have time for that kind of extra.
They're getting bedazzled on their way to Earth in that long flight.
Doing their hobbies.
Right.
Hand sewing, what's that called? Sequins on.
Gluing little rhinestones on. Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. I could hang out with those creatures.
You'd fit right in.
Exactly. Derenberger said the creature communicated with him telepathically. He was asked a series of questions, and then the creature identified itself as Indrid Cold. I love that name, and I'm definitely naming my next dog that.
I like to see you start screaming that.
Indrid Cold, get her. And he told Derenberger that he would visit him again. Then he just took off in his kerosene lamp-looking spacecraft. Following this encounter, several other residents from Point Pleasant claimed to have had similar encounters with Indrid Cold. Although some of Derenberger's initial claims seemed a bit outlandish, with the information he said that Indrid Cold gave him, the number of sightings were too numerous to ignore. There were also claims of two more grinning men named Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo. Such posh names, wide belts, smiling and glistening. I'm wondering if these guys celebrate Pride Month.
Maybe, but I think with their glamorous outfits, the belts would have a little more color, maybe a little rainbowy.
That would make sense. Then we know for sure.
Right.
But of all the sightings reported, the Lilly family claim was the most terrifying. Their daughter, Linda, ran screaming from her bedroom one night and told her mother a large, hulking man was in her bedroom, just grinning at her. The huge man walked around her bed and then stood over her and then disappeared. The family also claimed to have seen blue, green, and red lights around their house with color-changing orbs and diamond-shaped windows. I would have had heart failure and died if I saw a huge dude just standing over my bed and smiling like a shark. Heck no.
Well, that's a nightly occurrence for me.
Leave him alone. He's a nice man.
Yeah, he is, except when he's standing over your bed with a shark smile.
Because, that's a scary thought right there.
In his underwear.
In his underwear. You ain't getting no sleep that night.
Moving along.
Your chum.
Gross.
Okay, moving on. There were also several reports of a, quote, giant prowler with a fixed grin in Provincetown, Massachusetts during 1966 and 1967. Grinning man, or maybe we should say grinning men, have also been seen more recently in Connecticut, Roswell, New Mexico, and Italy.
Hmm.
This terrifying creature has been closely associated with Mothman, but he may be the most terrifying of all, with the creepy smile thrown in.
What do they have to smile about? They have no nose, no ears. Maybe because they can't smell or hear anything. Maybe that's why they're smiling.
They're just sucking in air. Doesn't make sense. I can't compute in my head the smile. It's like, it would not work for me.
Isn't there a movie called Smile? It's about people that once they're smiling a certain way are like dangerous.
I've never seen it. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
I haven't either, but they show people with creepy smiles.
I wonder if that's based on the Grinning Men.
Maybe.
Now we have to see it.
It's a scary movie, though.
Whatever.
Oh, gotcha, whatever.
On November 11th, 1966, there were 4 men digging a grave about an hour away from Point Pleasant in Clendenin. I think I said that right?
Yeah.
They claimed to see a, quote, brown human being, end quote, soaring over their heads repeatedly and moving rapidly from tree to tree while they were digging the grave. This was one of the first Mothman sightings. On November 14th, 1966, a farmer reported that his TV suddenly went full volume and started to go crazy. Then his dog started to whine and howl in a very concerning manner. So he started toward the TV to turn off the loud noise, and the entire thing blew up. He then ran out the front door to see what was up with his dog, but as he ran out, the dog took off toward the pump house shed. When he looked in that direction, all he could see were red lights floating and spinning in circles. He thought maybe the lights were being created by a helicopter or something in the air, but there was absolutely nothing in the air. His dog would not come back when he called him, which was not like the dog. So the farmer ended up going back inside the house without his dog. The dog disappeared and was never seen again.
Oh, poor pup. But then again, I've seen enough scary movies to know you never go running towards the danger.
That's very true, but I do wonder what happened to this poor dog. As sightings increased, so did reports of other strange phenomena. An outbreak of UFO sightings started to occur, including those that were about the Grinning Man and Mothman. There were so many sightings that the police department created a special assignment desk just to deal with all the UFO and paranormal sightings. Again, I'm going to give it more weight when the police department actually has to create a new position to deal with all the crazy sightings, because nobody wants to be called crazy, so they must have thought it was real.
Now, that would be a phone I'd love to answer in that department. Although I would have to fight from saying, okay, you're crazy.
Yeah, you would, because, I mean, just hearing everything we're talking about is like, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. But it would be interesting.
It would be very interesting. The entire town was dealing with disruption of electronic devices, telephones, police, dispatch radios, and televisions. Even automobiles were affected during these numerous reports of UFO appearances. 3 days later, on November 15th, 1966, 2 couples in Point Pleasant noticed a winged creature about 6 or 7 feet tall standing in front of the car they were all sitting in. 2 of the witnesses later claimed that the beast had glowing red eyes about 6 inches apart and a 10-foot wingspan. The creature apparently wanted to avoid their car's bright headlights, so it started to fly, and the witnesses claimed that he, the Mothman, could fly at a staggering speed, possibly as fast as 100 miles per hour, as it chased their car along the road. They tried to get to the munitions factory for safety. Then it flew off into a nearby field. Over the course of the next few months, more people, including 2 volunteer firefighters, sighted a similar creature, now dubbed the Mothman. The Mothman or Birdman is an urban legend that has been the subject of several stories and sightings reported in different parts of the world, but mainly in the United States. The term Mothman refers to an entity similar to a man, but with wings and physical characteristics similar to those of a moth or a butterfly. Even gorgeous, colorful butterfly wings couldn't stop this from being horrifying. No, thank you.
Yeah, but they could still be in the Pride Parade.
I think I've seen them in the Pride Parade. There are theories that the Mothman's appearance and the subsequent Silver Bridge disaster were linked to the 200-year-old curse attributed to Shawnee Chief Cornstalk, who led his warriors at the Battle of Point Pleasant and who was subsequently murdered there. From the date of his murder to the last Mothman-related catastrophe in that specific area in 1967 would have been 190 years. That's pretty stinking close to the 200-year curse window, I'm just saying.
Maybe Chief Cornstalk was accounting for leap years.
That would be about right. Point Pleasant is home to a statue, a festival, and a museum inspired by this being. They have obviously embraced the legendary creature, and many fully believe it is real. In September 2003, an original life-size sculpture of the Mothman was installed in downtown Point Pleasant. The town celebrates the legendary creature during the annual Mothman Festival each September.
So we were right about these small towns and their picket fences, parades, and festivals. This is the second town now that's had a festival over a Mothman or Birdman.
Over these monster creatures?
Right.
These people are nuts. The event draws more than 4,000 visitors who come to hear from Mothman experts and take part in the traditional festival activities such as hay rides and storytelling. I would love to go and to hear about the Mothman stories from, his own stomping grounds. Let's add that to the list.
Our ever-expanding list. We honestly need to get on that.
We do. Beginning in 2011 and as recently as 2020, a Mothman-like figure has been seen numerous times in the Chicago area. No one knows if it's a different Mothman or if West Virginia's highly celebrated creature retired and relocated to the Windy City.
So when you said Windy City, I was thinking he's getting older, he needs help flying, so he catches the wind in Chicago.
That's where all the flying creatures go.
That's right. Less work. They're in that must be the Birdman, Mothman retired city.
On November 21st, 2016, not too long ago, on the Eyewitness News, it was reported that a man took pictures of the Mothman while he was driving along State Route 2 in Point Pleasant. He snapped pictures of a creature jumping from tree to tree. So I saw these pictures and we'll post that. I know we're saying we're going to post a lot of things, but we're going to post that one because it was interesting. To me, it looked just like the Led Zeppelin Icarus album cover, with the winged guy reaching up.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder now if they use Mothman as inspiration.
Well, now I'm going to have to check out the pictures and the album just to verify that.
My son has that album cover tattooed on him.
Oh, well, you see it on the regular then.
Yeah, it's a great tattoo. It's a great picture. Many locals in Point Pleasant believe the pictures to be the legendary Mothman, which could be a very bad omen as historically he only appears prior to major catastrophes. But, they seem to be safe so far, and it's been a minute, so maybe he just flew in to promote Led Zeppelin, the best band ever, by the way.
So was that album a catastrophe?
No, it was not. One of their best. All of these creatures, winged weirdies, and their mysterious activities or frightening nighttime sightings have been the subject of speculation and controversy for decades, and I'm guessing that this will continue for decades to come, along with the celebration of these legends.
Man, I hope so, because I want to get the opportunity to see some of this stuff.
Me too. We definitely need to go.
Add it to the list.
I have been to West Virginia, but I've never been to Ohio.
I haven't been to either, so
Pretty out there.
get on that.
Get on it.
Well, thank you. It was very interesting.
It was and I know there was a lot of little stories in that story, but I couldn't tell one without telling the other. They all kind of intermingled in some way. A big creepy family.
Well, thank you very much for listening. As always, we greatly appreciate it. Remember to take care and don't forget to let your grimaginations run wild. Bye.
Bye, everybody. We just want to thank you all for sharing your time with us. And if you'd like to send in your creepy little grim bits, we would love to hear your personal stories, interests, and suggestions. Please email them to grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at grimwitwithdimwits, Twitter at grimwitwithdimwits, and Facebook, Grimwit with Dimwits. Join us every Monday for new episodes, and feel free to share us with your grim-loving friends.
We would really appreciate if you would take a minute to rate and review. 5-star ratings go a long way and would really help us out. Until then, we would love it if you'd come back next week to delve with us into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.